All right, so what I wanted to do is just show you guys how to set up your Notability Journal for those of you who are new to my class. So we're going to start out by changing our title, and our title for this project is going to be a sculptural ceramic vase. You can always make that something wild and crazy if you want to, but let's stick with something basic. And then this journal, as many of them will, are going to have 5 parts. So we're just going to number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And in between each of these sections, we're going to have quite a bit of information. So if you wanted to just kind of space that out, we can always space it out more later too. But at least up to number 3, I'm going to space that out. Number 1 is always going to be our notes for the project. It's also going to include the objectives and sometimes goals or whatever else I decide to call them. So that's going to go there. And I'll show you in just a minute how this matches the PowerPoint presentation. Number 2 for this project is reference pictures. And for this one, I think it's 4 different reference photos that we're going to have in here. So if you can kind of visualize, you'll have 4 pictures that you get from the internet, and we're going to put them in here for reference for our project. And then number 3, this is the fun part. This is going to be our sketches or plans for our project. And for this assignment, you're going to have some sketches that deal with just the form, which is a fancy word for shape. Okay, so we're going to have some form sketches, and then we're also going to have some final sketches. So the form sketches are kind of like just trying out some different ideas before we finalize our project. And then I also want to note, again, for those of you guys who are new, or as a reminder, these sketches could be on the iPad or they can be on paper. And if they are on paper, then you just would take a picture of them and insert a nice big picture here so I can see your designs. Okay, so that's the general setup for our journals. Number 4 and 5 down here, these are always going to come later. 4 is going to be our process pictures and our final pictures of the assignment. We want to have lots of pictures in there. And I also want them to be big. So right here I can see just a tiny bit. I want you guys to leave a lot of room there so you can give me some nice full-size pictures. With hybrid, that's still going to be how I grade your pictures, or how I grade your project, so it should be nice and big. Number 5 is going to be the rubric and the self-reflection part. There's going to be questions just to kind of think about what your work was like and how it went for you, what you're proud of, etc. That's always going to go right down at the end. Okay, so this is just our basic journal setup. And if you were to look at the PowerPoint presentation for the project, this is in Canvas, we would see that it matches. So number 1, notes and objectives right here, is number 1, history of vases. So you might write into your number 1 spot that vases have been around since about 10,000 BCE. They've been making them for functional purposes. Now they're a little bit more used for more contemporary things, holding flowers or pencils, not so much as maybe carrying water. So still number 1. I have the number 1 on there. I have your objectives here. So it lists what you have to do in order to complete the project. So create a slab construction that's creative, include a sculptural component, and potentially use these Elon transfers that I have, depending on how our project goes. And then I have lots of examples in here for form. So when you're sketching and thinking different forms, I've got the surface edition or sculptural editions that you can think about adding. So I just put lots of examples in here for you guys to think about. Then you would move on to number 2. And in your number 2 spot, this is where those research and reference pictures are going to go. So for this part, I have 1, 2, and 3, a couple of different things that you need to do. And it says down here at the bottom, you should end up with at least 4 images, but it could be more. Okay, so you can always do more than that. Number 3 gets down to your sketches and designs. So again, in Notability or on a piece of paper, this is where you would start playing around with the different ideas for your form and different ideas for what you would want to add on for your sculptural details. And then I've got some information about the process in here, final pictures, and then finally the rubric and self-reflection. You can take a screenshot of this if you want to and just put that screenshot into number 5 in your journal. Or on the turn-in assignment spot, this assignment will always have the rubric connected to it as well. So lots of options for how to complete that part. So going back to Notability, again, that number 1 right here is going to connect with the number 1 that's in the PowerPoint presentation. You can talk about the history, write 1 or 2 things down here. You can do something regarding the function of a vase, and then your objective. So what are the criteria? So we have a creative vase. It has to have a sculptural component. Okay, so all of the notes about the requirements would go under that number 1 spot. Number 2, again, connects to the number 2. Number 3 connects to the number 3. Okay, so that's how everything's organized. This, what you're creating here, is a journal, a visual journal of how you approach the project. So every part of your journal is going to be worth points. So that'll be 3 points. This will be 4 points. I always give a little more points for your sketches because I want them to be good. It'll be 5 points. Okay, and so on as we go down the journal. So every part of it does need to be completed and you get full points for the project. If you have any questions, if you're trying this out for the first time, just make sure to send me an email or we can WebEx and communicate a little bit more about that. All right, thank you.